You know, sometimes I wonder if midnight has a heartbeat, if silence can feel fear, because on the night I revealed my darkest family secret, every shadow felt alive, every breath felt heavy, and ah, my heart was pounding so loudly that I swear the walls could hear it. I remember standing in the hallway, barefoot on the cold floor, my fingers shaking so badly I had to hold them together. The house looked different in the dark. Everything was still, but it felt like the stillness before a storm. My mind kept whispering, "Turn back. Don't do it. Not tonight." But my chest felt too tight. The secret inside me had nowhere left to hide, so I took a deep breath, one of those shaky breaths that breaks halfway through, and walked toward my mother's room. The clock hit 12 o'clock, a soft tin, and then the entire world went quiet. I didn't knock first. I just stood there with my hand raised, frozen. My throat felt dry. My heart thudded so fast it almost made me laugh nervously. "Ha ha ha! Look at me, scared of my own truth," I whispered to myself. Then I finally knocked. My mother's voice came from inside, tired and soft. "Who is it?" "It's me," I whispered. Can I talk to you?" She opened the door slightly, her hair tied loosely, sleep still in her eyes. But the moment she saw my face, her eyes changed instantly. "What happened?" she asked, her voice full of worry. I tried smiling, a shaky, tiny little smile, but tears were already gathering in my eyes. I hated that I couldn't control it. "Mom, I need to talk about something important." She stepped aside gently. "Come in, sit." I walked in, feeling like the walls were closing in around me. The lamp in the corner filled the room with a warm glow, but even the warm light couldn't calm the storm inside me. My mother sat down. I sat across from her. My hands were trembling on my knees. She looked at me for a long second, then whispered, "Tell me, please tell me." I inhaled. My voice cracked with the first word. "I know." Her eyebrows lowered. "You know what?" My lips parted, but no sound came out at first. My throat was burning. My heart was racing. Then the name escaped my mouth in a trembling whisper. Ayesha. The moment that name left my lips, my mother froze. She didn't blink, didn't breathe, didn't move, just stared. The silence between us turned so heavy that even my breath sounded loud. I laughed nervously again, soft, broken. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it so suddenly, but I can't keep it inside, Mom." Her eyes filled instantly with tears. How do you know that name?" she asked, her voice barely audible. I swallowed hard. "I found the photo, the wedding photo, and the letters, and the documents, and..." She covered her mouth with her hand. A trembling sigh escaped her, then another. Then her shoulders slumped, like her strength had been ripped away in 1 second. Her voice came out fragile. Oh God, not this, not now." Seeing her break like that, my chest felt crushed. Tears spilled down my cheeks even though I was trying to hold them back. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I just needed to know. It was killing me." She shook her head slowly. "You weren't supposed to know. We planned, we prayed, that this truth would die with us." A tear fell down her cheek, then another. Her breath turned uneven. "I'm so tired," she whispered. "So tired of carrying this." I reached forward and held her hand. It felt cold, shaky. My voice trembled when I said, "Mom, please tell me the truth. I can't live between lies anymore." Her lips quivered. She wiped her tears quickly, but more fell. "Your father," she began, voice cracking. "Your father was married before me. Ayesha was his first wife. I nodded, slowly, painfully. I know. She looked shocked that I wasn't reacting. She expected screaming, accusations, anger. But I wasn't angry. I was sad, deeply sad. She continued, wiping her nose with the back of her hand, her voice shaking. She was young, beautiful, full of laughter. You would have liked her. She laughed like you do, loud and free. Just like you. Her voice broke as she let out a tiny, broken laugh. Then she cried again, small, helpless weeping. "Aw, Mom," I whispered, moving closer. "Please don't cry like that." "I have to," she sobbed. "I've been holding it inside for so long. It hurts so much." She pressed her palm to her chest as if trying to hold her heart together. "Ayesha didn't leave us," she whispered. "She didn't run away." A chill ran through my entire body. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice barely audible. My mother looked me straight in the eyes, tears streaming down her face. "She disappeared." My breath stopped. "Disappeared?" I repeated softly. She nodded. "We woke up one morning, and she was gone. Her clothes, her jewelry, everything was still there. She didn't take anything. She didn't write anything. She just vanished." I felt my stomach twist. But why didn't the family search for her? My mother's expression changed. Fear, shame, pain. "Your grandmother," she whispered. "She didn't want anyone to ask questions. And your father, he was young, scared, controlled. He believed his mother." Anger flared in my chest, confusion, sadness. But why would she lie? Why would she stop the search? My mother closed her eyes as another tear slid down her cheek. Because she blamed Ayesha for everything. She hated her. She said Ayesha was rebellious, disobedient, too modern. She said girls like her always leave. So she told the neighbors that Ayesha ran away. Her voice cracked again, and we were forced to believe her. The pain in her voice made my own eyes burn. I whispered, "So you all just let her disappear?" My mother let out a sob, a deep, painful sob. No, I didn't want to. I wanted to look for her. I begged your grandmother, begged your father. But she warned us. She scared us. She said she would throw us out, destroy us, shame us. Your father was too obedient, too scared. He listened to her. She was weeping now. Her tears fell fast. Her voice trembled uncontrollably. "And she whispered, I stayed silent. I stayed silent, and I hate myself for it." I wrapped my arms around her. She cried against my shoulder. Her tears soaked my shirt. Mine soaked hers. We cried together, deep, aching cries that came from the places we tried to hide for years. When she finally calmed, she whispered, "You should not hate your father. He carries guilt every day. He hasn't slept properly in years." I nodded slowly, and that was when I knew. I had to speak to my father, even if it shattered him, even if it shattered me, because the truth was too heavy to leave inside another second. I walked out of my mother's room with tears still fresh on my cheeks. My steps felt heavy, almost dragging across the floor. For a moment, I leaned on the wall, closing my eyes, letting the silence swallow me. My chest rose and fell unevenly. It felt like my own breath was fighting me. I wiped my face with shaky hands and whispered to myself, "You can't stop now. You have to talk to him." The living room was dim, lit only by the small bulb near the bookshelf. My father was sitting on the sofa, reading glasses at the tip of his nose, flipping through a file. He didn't see me at first. His face, it looked tired, older than he really was. Lines of exhaustion carved into his forehead, his eyes dull with years of unspoken weight. I stood there for a moment watching him, and for the first time in my life, I wondered what he looked like the day Ayesha disappeared. Was he crying then too? Was he silent? Was he scared? Did he blame himself? My throat tightened. I took a step, one step, and the wooden floor made a soft sound. He looked up, surprised. "Oh, what are you doing awake?" he asked softly, trying to smile, but the smile faded the second he saw my eyes. He put the file aside. He sat upright, his eyebrows pulled together in concern. "What happened?" he asked, voice tense now. "Why are you crying? Did something happen?" I laughed, nervously. A shaky little, "No, nothing happened, My voice broke. I swallowed, wiping fresh tears quickly. He stood up immediately. "Come here," he said gently, moving closer. I stepped back. He froze, the confusion in his eyes. Awe. It made me feel guilty instantly. "Why are you moving away?" he asked quietly. "Talk to me." I took a deep breath, a deep, trembling breath. "Dad, I know." His face stiffened. He blinked twice, then again. A tiny twitch appeared near his eyebrow. "You know what?" My heart hammered inside my chest. "I know about Ayesha." He froze completely. The room became painfully silent. He stared at me as if the world just stopped, as if he had been struck. "Ayesha," he repeated, his voice barely more than a whisper. I nodded. I found the photo, the letters, the report, everything. He took a slow step back and sat heavily on the sofa, like his legs refused to hold him anymore. He inhaled sharply, his chest rising high, then falling suddenly, almost like he was trying not to cry. "Oh God," he whispered, pressing a hand to his forehead. "Oh God, not this." I sat across from him, my hands twisted together nervously. "Dad, I need you to talk to me, please." He chuckled suddenly, not happy, but broken, a tiny shaky laugh. "Ha ha ha, you know, for years, I prayed you would never find out." His voice cracked, another sigh. His eyes glistened. "And now here we are." A tear slipped down his cheek. He wiped it quickly, pretending it wasn't there, but another followed, then another. "Dad," I whispered, my throat burning, "just tell me the truth." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, fingers tangled in his hair. "Ayesha," he said slowly, voice trembling, "was the first woman I ever loved." He laughed again, soft, sad. "She was everything. Bright, kind, full of life, always laughing, always smiling. She would joke so much that even I, quiet, shy, boring me, would laugh with her. Ha ha ha. She had a way of making the whole room light up." His voice softened until it felt like he was talking to a memory instead of me. "But my mother, she never liked her. She said Ayesha was too modern, too loud, too free. She didn't want a daughter-in-law who questioned her rules." He exhaled deeply, a painful sigh. "The fight started small, but then they grew. Every day there was yelling, accusations. My mother, she could be cruel. And Ayesha, she was strong at first. But slowly, she began to break." Another tear fell down his cheek. "You know, I still remember the night before she disappeared," he whispered. "She sat beside me, quiet, not smiling, not laughing, just quiet. She said she felt empty, like she had no place in this house." He wiped his face again, his eyes red now. "She said she missed her parents, her home, her freedom. And his voice broke. He swallowed hard. "And I told her it would get better." Ha ha ha, better. I lied. I didn't do anything. I didn't protect her. I didn't fight for her." He let out a shaky breath that sounded like he was suffocating inside. The next words came out in a whisper full of pain. "And the next morning, she was gone." The room went silent. My father's breath hitched. His hands shook violently. He looked at me, eyes full of regret heavier than the sky. "I searched for her for months," he said. "I went everywhere, everywhere. I begged the police, I begged your grandmother, but your grandmother, she forced me to lie, forced me to say Ayesha left by choice." He choked on his next words. "I swear on God, I never stopped looking. Even after I married your mother, I never stopped." His voice cracked, then he broke. He covered his face with both hands and began to weep. Not soft tears, but deep, broken crying, from a man who had held pain so long it became a part of him. I sat beside him, put my hand on his shoulder. He cried harder. His body shook. His breath came out in broken pieces. He whispered again and again, "I failed her. I failed her. I failed her." I wrapped my arms around him. "Dad, please, please stop," I whispered through my own tears. "You were young. You were scared. You didn't know any better." He shook his head violently. No, that's not an excuse. I should have protected her. I should have fought for her. I should have..." His voice faded into sobs. That night, I saw my father break completely, piece by piece, right in front of me. And it hurt more than any truth I uncovered. It hurt because I realized my father wasn't a monster. He was a man trapped between love and fear, a man who made mistakes, a man who carried guilt for decades, a man who lost a piece of himself the day Ayesha disappeared. And I held him until his sobs softened, until his breathing steadied, until the storm inside him quieted for the first time in years. When he finally spoke again, his voice was barely a whisper. "There's more," he said. A cold chill ran down my spine. I whispered, "What more?" He looked at me, eyes full of fear, full of something darker, and he said, "There's something no one knows, something even your mother doesn't know." My father's words echoed in the silent room like a cold wind. Something even my mother didn't know? My heart sank. My stomach twisted. I felt this sudden, strange chill crawl up my spine. I wiped my face slowly, my fingers still trembling. "Dad, what do you mean?" I whispered. He leaned back against the sofa, eyes staring at the floor, breathing heavily. It looked like every memory he had been burying was clawing its way out. "There is something I never told your mother," he said, voice barely holding together. "Something I hid from everyone. Something dark." My chest tightened. "Dad, please, don't hold anything inside anymore. Just tell me." He rubbed his hands together, nervous, almost terrified. His lips trembled. He looked like a man about to confess a crime. "You remember that night she disappeared?" he asked. I nodded slowly. Every detail of that night felt sharp and clear now. He took another shaky breath. "Well, that night, there was a fight. A sudden heaviness fell over the whole room." I whispered, "Between who?" He swallowed hard. "Between my mother and Ayesha." My breath caught in my throat. A tiny gasp escaped. He nodded weakly. "She said Ayesha insulted her. But that wasn't true. My mother. She provoked her. She pushed her. They shouted. The entire house heard it." His voice cracked like old wood, and I didn't stop it. He squeezed his eyes shut as tears spilled again. I stood outside the door, listening, frozen. A grown man, listening to two women tear each other apart because I didn't have the courage to step inside and say enough. He wiped his eyes, frustrated with himself. What kind of man was I? What kind of husband? I shook my head, tears sliding down my cheeks again. "Dad, don't do that to yourself." But he lifted a hand, stopping me. "No, let me finish," he whispered. His voice had this deep sadness I had never heard before. "After the fight finished, everything got quiet, too quiet. His breath hitched. My mother came out of the room. Her eyes were red. Her hands were shaking. She wouldn't look at me. She walked past me without saying a word. My father looked at me, eyes wide with fear. And when I went inside the room, Ayesha was sitting on the floor, crying, silent tears rolling down her face.
She wasn't even sobbing.
Just letting tears fall like they were too heavy to hold inside. He paused, his voice breaking completely. She looked up at me and said, in the softest voice I ever heard from her, "I can't stay here anymore." A lump formed in my throat. I felt tears gather again. She wasn't angry, he whispered. She wasn't yelling, she was just broken. He let out a long sigh. 1 hour later, she was gone. Silence. Heavy silence. Silence that felt like it carried the weight of years. I finally whispered, "What are you saying, Dad?" He lifted his hands, shaking uncontrollably. That night, I heard a sound, after midnight, like someone opening the back door, footsteps, then silence. I felt the hair on my arms rise. I thought it was a cat or something. I didn't check. He covered his face, voice trembling, and the next morning, her bed was empty. A tear rolled down his nose and fell onto his shirt. I think she left the house that night, broken, alone, hurting, and I wasn't there for her. My chest felt like someone tightened a rope around it. He looked up at me again. But that's not the darkest part. My breath froze. What do you mean?" He looked terrified. There were footprints in the backyard, leading toward the old canal road. My eyes widened. "What?" I whispered, my voice shaking. He nodded, tears streaming. "I saw them. Early morning, small footprints. Her slippers were still inside the house. She walked barefoot." A faint sob escaped him. She walked barefoot into the night, into the dark, with no bag, no phone, nothing. I covered my mouth, trying not to cry out loud. A soft, broken "aw" escaped anyway. "But," he continued, voice trembling, "when I showed them to my mother, you know what she said?" He swallowed painfully. She said, "Erase them." And I listened. My heart shattered. "You erased them?" I whispered. He nodded, shame filling every line on his face. "I brushed them away with a broom before anyone saw, before the neighbors woke up, before your mother could find out." His voice cracked again. "I erased the last sign she left behind." Tears fell down my face uncontrollably. I couldn't stop them. Neither could he. I reached out and held his hand. He squeezed mine desperately. "I have lived with that guilt for 30 years, he whispered. "I should have followed those footprints. I should have run after her. I should have called someone. I should have..." His voice broke. "I should have saved her." He stared at me with red, swollen eyes. "And that's the part I never told your mother." I wiped my tears with the back of my hand, but they kept falling. A tiny sob escaped me. "Dad, this is so much." He nodded slowly. "You asked for the truth," he whispered. "And the truth is, I failed her in every way a man can fail someone." He leaned back again, breathing heavily, and for a moment, we just sat there. Two broken souls in the middle of a quiet night, both crying for a woman we never got to say goodbye to. My father wiped his eyes again, but fresh tears kept falling. It was like the truth inside him had finally broken free, and now it refused to stop pouring out. The room felt heavy, filled with old memories, broken promises, and all the things he never said. I leaned closer, whispering softly, "Dad, what happened after you erased the footprints?" He exhaled a shaky breath. 1 hour later, the police came. Someone reported a scream near the canal road. My breath caught instantly. A small gasp escaped me. He nodded slowly, eyes distant, voice trembling. I went with them. We searched the surrounding area, the trees, the dirt road, the canal edge, everything. For hours. His voice lowered to a whisper, but we found nothing. He rubbed his forehead, sighing deeply. Nothing, except a silver anklet. I froze. A silver anklet? I asked, my heart pounding. He nodded again. It was lying near the canal path, broken, like it snapped during a struggle, or maybe she dropped it while running. A small trembling "ah" slipped from my lips. My chest ached. Was it hers? I asked. He nodded, wiping his tears. Yes, it was. I recognized it immediately. I bought it for her on our first anniversary. He let out a soft, painful laugh. Ha ha ha, she loved that anklet. She used to tease me, saying she would wear it until it fell apart. And it really did, but not the way she imagined. Another tear fell. I whispered, "What did you do with it?" He looked down at his shaking hands. "It's still with me." My heart tightened. "With you? After all these years?" He nodded. "I hid it. I couldn't tell anyone. Not your grandmother. Not even your mother. That anklet. It was the last piece of her I had. The last sign she left behind before she vanished." He bit his lower lip as if trying to stop himself from crying again. And every night for years, I took it out, held it, and cried. I cried silently because I didn't want your mother to hear. I cried because I didn't know if Ayesha was alive, or lost, or suffering, or gone forever. He shook his head slowly. "You know what hurts the most?" he whispered, eyes full of devastation. "It's not knowing. Not knowing if she needed help. Not knowing if she was scared. Not knowing if she waited for me. Not knowing if she died alone." His voice broke entirely, and I did nothing. I touched his arm, whispering shakily, "Dad, please, please don't do this to yourself. You didn't know." He shook his head violently. "No, I knew something was wrong. I knew she wasn't safe. I knew she wouldn't just leave without her shoes, her things, her anklet. I knew it, and still, I didn't run after her." He covered his face with both hands. His shoulders trembled. A painful, muffled sob escaped him. I felt my own tears spill again. Seeing him like that, seeing my father shattered, crumbling, weeping like a child. It tore something inside me. I whispered, "Dad, please breathe. Please, I'm right here." But he was lost in memories. His voice came out barely audible, trembling with guilt. For years, I woke up at night hearing her voice, hearing her cry, hearing her call my name. I thought I was going crazy. Sometimes I would hear the sound of her anklet in the hallway, the tiny jingling sound she used to make. He let out a shaky laugh. Maybe it was my mind. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was her spirit. I don't know. But every sound reminded me of her. He looked at me, deep pain drowning his eyes. And that's why I stopped laughing. That's why I stopped singing. That's why I became quiet. Your mother thought marriage changed me, but no. Losing Ayesha changed me. My lips trembled. Hearing him confess this was like watching a man bleed from wounds no one knew he had. After a moment, I asked quietly, Did you ever find out anything more? Anything at all?" He shook his head slowly, hopelessly. "Nothing. Not a trace. No sightings, no letters, no body, no clue. Just the anklet and the empty road." He sighed deeply. The police eventually gave up. My mother told everyone to stop talking about it. And slowly, everyone pretended she never existed. He looked away, voice heavy. Except me. I carried her inside me every single day. My throat tightened. "And what about Mom?" I whispered. "Did she ever know how much you loved Ayesha?" He hesitated. "Yes," he said softly. "She knew I loved her. She knew I mourned her. But she never knew about the footprints, or the anklet, or that I still hear Ayesha in my dreams." I felt a cold shiver. "And now," he whispered, "I'm tired. So tired. I can't pretend anymore." He lifted his face. His eyes were red, wet, broken. "Thank you," he whispered, voice trembling, "for listening, for asking, for letting me finally speak." I nodded, wiping my tears again. He took my hand in his, warm, shaky, desperate. "I need you to promise me something," he said. "What's that?" I whispered back. He squeezed my hand tightly. "Find her." My breath stopped. "What?" I asked, stunned. He nodded. "Find her. I don't care if she's alive. I don't care if she's gone. I don't care how long it takes. I need to know the truth before I die." Tears welled in my eyes again. "Dad, I don't know if we can." He squeezed harder. "You can. You have to, because you're the only one brave enough to uncover the truth." I swallowed hard. My heart pounded. I whispered, "Okay, I promise. I'll find her." A tiny smile appeared on his face, weak, sad, grateful, and he whispered a single word, "Thank you." Then he broke down again, sobbing softly, painfully, but this time with a strange sense of relief, as if the truth finally set his soul free. After that night, after hearing my father's trembling voice ask me to find the woman he once loved, everything inside me shifted. It felt like the ground beneath my feet had cracked open, like my whole life, everything I thought I knew, was suddenly hanging from a thin thread. The room was quiet again, but it wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet. It was the heavy kind, the kind that settles on your chest and refuses to move. My father leaned back on the sofa, exhausted. His eyes were swollen, his breath still uneven. He looked like a man who had cried for a lifetime in just one night. I whispered softly, "Dad, try to rest. You've held this inside too long." He nodded weakly. But then he chuckled, this sad, broken little ha 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 that made my heart ache. "Rest?" he whispered, wiping the corner of his eye. "I haven't rested since the day she vanished." My throat tightened again. Ah, his words were heavy, too heavy. I didn't know what to say. How do you comfort a man who never stopped grieving? How do you touch pain that deep? I could only sit beside him silently. He glanced at me, voice soft. "You're the first person I ever told everything to. The first person who listened without judging me." "I'm your child," I whispered. "I'll always listen." His lips trembled. "Thank you. You don't know how much that means." I nodded. We sat in silence for a long moment. The clock ticked slowly in the background. Tick, tick, tick. Every second felt like a small reminder of the time Ayesha had lost. Finally, my father inhaled deeply and whispered, "You should sleep now. It's late." But I shook my head. "I can't sleep after hearing all this." He sighed softly. "I know." He stood up slowly, his knees cracking a little, age showing, guilt showing even more. He walked toward his bedroom door, then stopped, turned around, looked at me with eyes full of years and pain. "One day," he whispered, "when you find her story, bring it to me, even if it hurts." I nodded. "I promise." He nodded back, once, slowly, then went into his room. The moment his door closed, I let out a long, trembling sigh. Then the tears came. I covered my face with both hands and cried silently, crying for a woman I never met, crying for a man who never healed, crying for a family built on broken truths. I don't know how long I sat there. Minutes, hours. Time didn't feel real anymore. When I finally stood up, my legs felt weak, shaky, almost numb. I walked to my room slowly, every step heavy. The moment I closed the door behind me, I collapsed on the bed and stared at the ceiling. My mind spun with questions. What if Ayesha was hurt that night? What if someone found her? What if she reached out for help and no one came? What if she's alive somewhere, living a life we never knew about? Or what if... My breath shivered at the thought. What if she didn't make it? I shut my eyes tightly, whispering, "No, no, don't think like that." But the truth was brutal. Anything was possible. I pulled my pillow close and hugged it tightly. A small broken "ah" escaped me. I couldn't shake the image of her walking barefoot into the night. Her tears, her anklet breaking, her painful silence. I whispered into the dark, "I'm sorry." Hours passed without sleep. The night felt endless. When morning finally came, I dragged myself out of bed. My eyes were swollen, my head heavy, my heart even heavier. I walked into the kitchen and my mother was already awake. She didn't look at me at first. She stirred the tea slowly, staring at the boiling water like it held all her memories. When she finally turned, her eyes met mine. Her lips parted slightly. We didn't speak, we just looked at each other. The silence said everything. She quietly handed me a cup of tea. Her hand brushed mine and she whispered softly, "Did your father tell you everything?" I nodded. Her eyes filled again. She blinked quickly to hold the tears back. "He cried, didn't he?" she asked, voice cracking. I nodded again. "Yes." She swallowed, her throat tightening visibly. I knew he would. That pain. He never let it go. I whispered, "Mom, why didn't you ever ask him more? Why didn't you push him to talk?" She smiled sadly, shaking her head. "Ha ha ha, you think your father is easy to talk to when he's hurting. No beta. When he breaks silently. And I didn't want to reopen wounds he spent years trying to close." My eyes filled again. She looked down, voice soft, trembling. "I didn't just marry a man. I married his broken heart." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My chest tightened painfully. I whispered, "Mom, did it hurt you, knowing he loved her so much?" She let out a small sigh. At first, yes, it hurt. It burned. I felt jealous of a woman I never met. I felt like a replacement. A tear slid down her cheek. But with time, I realized something. He didn't stop loving her to love me. Love isn't a glass of water that empties for one and fills for another. It's a wound that never healed, but he still gave me everything he had left. A tiny, sad smile appeared on her lips, and that was enough. I covered my mouth, overwhelmed by emotion. She wiped her tears with her shawl. Then she whispered, "What did he ask you for?" I hesitated, then said softly, "He wants me to find her." Her spoon fell from her hand. The metallic sound echoed in the kitchen. She stared at me, shocked, afraid, breathless. "Find her?" she whispered. "But after all these years, how can you—" "I don't know," I whispered back, but I promised him. She covered her mouth with her hand, tears sliding down her face. "Aw, Beta, why did you promise him something so painful?" I looked into her eyes, because he won't ever heal until the truth is found, and if I don't do it, no one will. She closed her eyes tightly, tears dripping onto her hands. "You're just like her," she whispered. "Ayesha, brave, stubborn, always chasing the truth." Those words made my heart ache in a way I can't explain. I whispered, "Mom, are you scared of what I'll find?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, I'm terrified, Because some truths don't heal us, they destroy us. I swallowed hard, but I still said the words firmly. I have to do this. She looked at me, eyes full of fear and love, and whispered, "Then I'll help you." My mother's words surprised me so much that for a second I just stared at her with wide eyes. You'll help me?" I whispered. Her expression softened, but her eyes stayed filled with fear. "Yes, if we're going to open the past, we will do it together. This family has broken once already. I won't let you carry this alone." A trembling breath escaped me. A small, overwhelmed "ah" slipped out. She wiped a tear from her cheek and forced a tiny smile. "Finish your tea. You'll need strength." But my hands were shaking too much to even pick up the cup. My mind kept replaying the image of Ayesha walking barefoot into the night, the broken anklet, the footprints leading toward the canal, the scream someone heard. Every detail felt like a blade cutting deeper. After a few moments of silence, my mother spoke again, softly. "There's someone you need to talk to first." I looked up. "Who?" She hesitated, then whispered, "Your grandmother's old neighbor, Auntie Salima. She lived next door back then. She knows more than she ever said." My heart fluttered with a mix of fear and hope. "Do you think she'll talk?" My mother nodded slowly. "She's old now, weak. When people grow old, they get tired of hiding secrets. They want to leave the world lighter. And she saw things, Beta. Things she never told anyone." I swallowed hard. My voice trembled. "Should we go now?" My mother looked at the clock. "It's still early. Let's leave after breakfast." I nodded, even though my heart was already racing to go. But suddenly, she grabbed my hand, tightly. I looked at her, confused. Her eyes had changed. A shadow of fear passed through them. She whispered, "Before we do anything, I need to tell you something. Something I never told your father." My breath caught in my throat. Another secret. How many layers were hidden in this family? My mother wiped her face, took a deep breath, and said, "The night Ayesha disappeared, she came to me." My mouth fell open. "She came to you?" I whispered. My mother nodded, tears building again. "Yes, she knocked on my door at midnight. I still remember. She looked broken. Her eyes were swollen, her face pale, her hair messy. She was holding her dupatta so tightly around her like she was afraid someone would grab her." A trembling sigh escaped her. She looked nothing like the lively girl she used to be. My throat tightened painfully. "What did she say?" I whispered. My mother closed her eyes, remembering. "She asked me one question." Her voice cracked. "And I still hear it every night." I leaned in closer. "She asked me," my mother whispered slowly, softly, painfully, "if I leave, will you tell someone?" I felt a sharp sting behind my eyes. What did you say?" I asked, voice barely audible. My mother looked shattered. I told her to wait, to stop, to breathe. I held her hand and said, "Don't leave. We'll fix this. You're not alone." But she just smiled at me, a sad, exhausted smile. It wasn't even a real laugh, more like a breath pretending to be one. My mother wiped her tears with her sleeve, but her hands were shaking badly. She kissed my forehead and said, "Thank you for being kind to me." Then she walked away. Her lips trembled as she whispered. That was the last time I saw her. I covered my mouth, choking on my own breath. This was too much, too heavy, too heartbreaking. "Mom," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. She nodded, weeping quietly now. I should have followed her. I should have run after her. But I froze. I was scared of your grandmother, scared of the fights, scared of everything. I didn't know she wouldn't come back. I didn't know she was saying goodbye. She shook her head, her voice trembling. "Your father thinks he heard her leave, but I watched her leave. I watched her walk down that hallway, alone, and I let her go. Her shoulders shook as she cried harder. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have saved her." I hugged her immediately, pulling her close. She clung to me tightly, crying into my shoulder. We stayed like that for what felt like a long time, a mother and child, united by guilt that did not belong to us but lived inside us anyway. When her sobs softened, she whispered, "You cannot tell your father. He will break completely." "I won't," I whispered. She nodded, wiping her tears. "But you must find out what happened to her. You must." I nodded firmly. "I will." After breakfast, we prepared to leave. My father was sleeping. He looked peaceful for once, almost like releasing the truth loosened something inside him. My mother kissed his forehead gently, her fingers trembling. Then we quietly left the house. The neighborhood where my grandmother once lived was about 30 minutes away. During the drive, my mother stared out of the window silently. Her silence was filled with memories, regrets, pain. When we reached the old street, everything looked smaller. The houses were worn down, the paint peeling, the street cracked, the trees older, but the air still carried the ghosts of what once happened here. We stopped in front of a small, faded blue house. "This is it," my mother whispered. "Auntie Salima's home." My heart started beating faster. "I don't know if she'll even remember us," she added. I whispered, "We'll try." We walked to the door. My mother knocked gently. For a few seconds, nothing happened. I thought maybe no one was home, but then the door opened slowly, and an old woman, thin, frail, wrapped in a shawl, stood there. Her eyes blinked a few times, trying to focus. Then her gaze fell on my mother and widened. "You," she whispered. My mother nodded slowly. "It's me. I need to talk to you." A hint of fear flickered in the old woman's eyes. She whispered softly, almost trembling, "Is it about that night?" My breath caught instantly. My mother swallowed hard. "Yes, please, we need to know what you saw." The old woman's hand trembled on the door. She hesitated, then stepped aside and whispered, "Come inside. The truth has waited long enough." The moment we stepped into Auntie Salima's house, a strange heaviness filled the air. The place smelled like old furniture, dust and something else, something sad, as if memories had soaked into the walls and never left. The living room was small, dimly lit with a single bulb flickering weakly above our heads. Old photos were scattered on the shelves, most of them faded, faces blurred by time. The old woman lowered herself slowly onto a wooden chair. She placed her shaking hands in her lap, took a deep breath, and looked at us with tired, heavy eyes. "Why now?" she whispered. Her voice was thin, almost fragile. "Why come after all these years?" My mother swallowed, her throat tight. We never had the courage, but now my child wants to know the truth. They deserve to know." Auntie Salima turned her gaze toward me. Her eyes softened slightly. "You look like her," she said suddenly. My heart nearly stopped. I whispered, "Like who?" "Ayesha," she said softly. She had the same eyes, the same softness, the same way of standing. She used to smile at me every morning when she brought out the trash. Such a sweet girl. Her lips trembled for a moment, as if she was remembering something painful. I felt a shiver crawl up my arms. "She was beautiful," the old woman continued. "Beautiful, but sad. You could always see the sadness behind her smile." My mother lowered her eyes, guilt filling her face again. We sat down on the floor in front of her chair, waiting. Auntie Salima inhaled deeply, her chest rising slowly as if the air itself was heavy. "What do you want to know?" she asked. I whispered, "Everything you remember, please." She looked down at her hands. The wrinkles seemed deeper now. Her fingers grazed the edge of her shawl as she spoke. "It was a terrible night," she said softly. I remember it like it happened yesterday. I leaned forward slightly, listening with every part of my being. There was shouting, she continued. Loud, angry. I heard your grandmother screaming. Everyone on the street heard. That woman had a voice like thunder. God knows what she said inside that house, but it wasn't good. My mother shut her eyes tightly, flinching. And Ayesha, Auntie Salima, shook her head slowly. She cried. I heard her crying through the wall, soft at first, then harder. I almost went to knock on the door, but your grandmother scared me. She scared everyone. She exhaled deeply. It went quiet after midnight. I thought it was over, but then her voice dropped to a whisper. I heard footsteps. I felt my breath hitch. Footsteps? I asked softly. The old woman nodded. Yes, slow footsteps, barefoot. The sounds of heels or slippers echo, but these footsteps, they were soft, almost silent. My pulse quickened. Ayesha, I whispered. She nodded again. Yes, she walked past my window. I saw her. My mother gasped softly. A trembling "ah" left her mouth. What did she look like? She asked, voice cracking. Auntie Salima's lips pressed together as if holding back tears. She looked lost. Her eyes were swollen. She had been crying a lot. Her dupatta was wrapped tightly around her like she was cold or afraid. She kept looking over her shoulder, as if expecting someone to come after her. My chest tightened painfully. Did she say anything? I whispered. Yes. The old woman nodded slowly. She whispered something, barely loud enough to hear. My heart pounded. What did she say? The old woman hesitated, then whispered the words that shattered me. She said, "Someone help me." My mother covered her face instantly, sobbing softly. I felt tears fill my own eyes. Auntie Salima looked down, her voice shaking. I opened my door a little, but I was scared. She walked toward the canal road. I didn't follow her. I was an old woman even then. I didn't think she would go far. I pressed my hands to my mouth. And then, she continued, a little while later, I heard a scream. A cold shiver rushed through me. My voice came out barely audible. A scream. Here? She nodded. A sharp scream, like someone hurt her or frightened her. It came from the direction of the canal. My mother trembled beside me. What did you do? I whispered, horrified. I went outside, she admitted. But the night was so dark. I called out her name, but no one answered. I was too scared to go near the canal alone. I thought maybe it was just a stray animal, or maybe she slipped, but I didn't hear anything more after that. She wiped her eye with the corner of her shawl. I went back inside. I told myself she must have gone to her parents, that she left the neighborhood. I told myself she was fine. Her voice cracked. That was my mistake. I swallowed hard, tears streaming. Did you tell anyone? I asked. She shook her head. No. Your grandmother. She came to my door the next morning. She warned me not to say a word. She said Ayesha ran away by choice. She was angry, shouting like always. I kept quiet. Everyone kept quiet. She sighed deeply, whispering, but she didn't run away. I know she didn't. My mother whispered, her voice trembling. What do you think happened to her? Auntie Salima looked at me with sadness that cut straight into my heart. I think something happened near the canal that night, something bad, and whoever was there didn't want to be found. My breath stopped. My mother shook violently, grabbing her shawl tightly. Auntie Salima leaned forward and whispered, the truth didn't disappear. It was buried. A chill crawled up my spine. What do you mean? I asked, voice trembling. She hesitated, then said something that made my blood run cold. I saw someone else on the road that night, someone following her. My mother gasped loudly. I covered my mouth. "Who?" I whispered, fear gripping me. She leaned closer. I didn't see their face, but I saw their shadow. Her voice dropped to a shaky breath, and it wasn't Ayesha's. The moment Auntie Salima said she saw a shadow following Ayesha, the air inside the room thickened. My heart started beating harder, louder, like a warning drum inside my chest. I leaned forward, trying to keep my voice steady. "What do you mean? A shadow? Someone following her?" The old woman nodded slowly, her eyes drifting toward the window as if she could still see that night. "I was standing behind my curtain," she said. "I didn't want anyone to see me watching. When Ayesha walked past, her shadow fell long and thin from the streetlight, but right behind her, I saw another shadow." My mother covered her mouth, whispering softly, trembling. "Ah, Ya Allah." I felt my stomach twist. The hairs on my arms rose. "Could you see who it was?" I whispered. "No," she said, shaking her head. The person stayed far behind her. They were careful, slow, silent. Their shadow was bigger than hers, maybe a man, maybe someone tall. Her fingers trembled as she clutched her shawl tighter. "I wanted to call out to her," she continued, voice cracking, "but I was too scared. Women back then, we lived in fear of men, of neighbors, of gossip, of your grandmother. I told myself maybe it was your father looking for her. Maybe it was nothing." My mother shook her head, tears welling again. Her husband was crying inside the house. It wasn't him. He didn't even know she was gone until morning. The old woman sighed, a long, weary sigh that carried 30 years of guilt. "I know that now," she whispered. "But that night, I was too afraid to open my mouth." Silence hung in the room for a long moment. Finally, I spoke again, voice shaking. "Did the shadow follow her toward the canal?" The old woman nodded. "Yes, I watched until they disappeared around the corner. Ayesha walked fast, like she was running away from something, and the shadow followed at the same pace. A coldness settled deep inside me. And the scream you heard," I whispered, "was it right after they disappeared?" She nodded again, pressing her lips together tightly. "Yes, only a few minutes later." My mother sobbed softly beside me. Her shoulders shook, her breathing uneven. Oh God, we failed her," she whispered. The old woman looked at her, eyes full of sadness. "We all failed her," she said quietly. "Your mother-in-law controlled the whole street back then. No one dared to question her. No one dared to help Ayesha. We all stayed silent, even after the scream." I swallowed hard, fighting tears. It hurt. It hurt so deeply, like something sharp scratching the inside of my chest. "What happened the next morning?" I asked. The old woman sighed again. "I saw your grandmother outside," she said. "She was sweeping the backyard aggressively, angrily. I didn't understand why. I thought it was just her temper." But then she paused. My mother leaned closer, voice trembling. "What? What did she do?" The old woman hesitated. Her eyes flickered with fear, like the memory itself terrified her. "She wasn't sweeping leaves," the old woman whispered. "She was sweeping away footprints." My breath stopped. Footprints. My father said he erased footprints with a broom, but this meant my grandmother did it first. My mother whispered shakily, "Are you sure? You saw her doing that?" The old woman nodded firmly. "Yes, I saw her sweeping the mud, sweeping it hard, dragging the broom across the ground again and again. She kept looking around, making sure no one was watching. She let out a weak, hollow laugh. Ha ha ha! She didn't see me behind the curtain." "Did she look worried?" I asked. The old woman shook her head. "No, she looked angry, very angry, like someone who lost control of something and wanted to cover it up quickly." My mother's hands trembled uncontrollably now. "And then?" I whispered. She called a rickshaw, the old woman said, and left. When she returned, she told the whole neighborhood that Ayesha had run away. She warned everyone not to talk about it, not to ask questions. She said if anyone spoke her name, they would be thrown out of the street. My mother closed her eyes tightly, tears streaming freely. She scared everyone, she whispered. She scared me too. The old woman nodded, and so the truth was buried. I leaned forward, my voice almost trembling too hard to speak. Auntie, is there anything else? Anything at all you remember? She hesitated. Her eyes drifted upward, as if searching her mind. Then she nodded slowly. Yes, there was one more thing, something I kept hidden even from my own daughters. I held my breath. What is it? I asked. She looked at me, eyes sharp despite her age. The morning after, when the sun came up, I walked near the canal road. My heart jumped. And? I whispered. I saw something lying near the edge of the canal, she said. My mother's voice cracked. What did you see? The old woman inhaled shakily. A piece of blue cloth. Blue. My father said nothing of this. My mother's eyes widened. Ayesha was wearing a blue dupatta that night, my mother whispered. Yes, the old woman said. And that morning, a torn piece of blue cloth was stuck in a thorn bush near the canal. My entire body tensed. Torn? I whispered, voice barely audible. Yes, torn. As if it was pulled or caught while she was struggling. I wanted to pick it up, but your grandmother arrived before I could. She snatched it, hid it inside her shawl, and told me to forget what I saw. My mother let out a soft, broken sob. Why didn't you tell anyone? She cried. The old woman lowered her gaze. Because your grandmother threatened me. She said if I opened my mouth, I'd regret it. And I was a widow with small children back then. I didn't have the courage. Silence. Painful silence. Finally, she whispered. But now I'm old. What can anyone do to me now? My children have their own lives. My husband is gone. And I am ready to leave this world lighter. So I am telling you the truth. A single tear slid down her cheek. Ayesha didn't run away. Something happened to her that night. I wiped my eyes, my voice choking. Do you think she's dead? I whispered. The old woman looked at me sadly. I don't know, but if she is, the canal is where her story ended. A cold chill washed through my entire body. My mother shivered beside me. The old woman leaned back in her chair, exhausted. I hope you find the truth before I die, she whispered. I nodded, wiping my tears. We will, I promise. As we stood up to leave, my mother's fingers slipped into mine. Her touch was cold, trembling. When we stepped outside the house, she whispered, barely audible, Beta, I'm scared. I squeezed her hand. So am I. We took a step toward the car, but suddenly, the old woman called out behind us. We turned around. She stood in the doorway, shawl wrapped tightly around her, eyes full of fear. Be careful, she whispered. Why? I asked. Her voice shook as she said, because shadows don't follow people unless they're hiding something. We left Auntie Salima's house slowly, quietly, like we were walking out of a room full of ghosts. My mother didn't speak for several minutes. She just held my hand tightly, as if letting go might break her. When we reached the car, she finally whispered, voice trembling, I can't believe she saw someone following Ayesha. I can't believe she heard a scream. I nodded, swallowing hard. And the torn blue cloth, I whispered. That changes everything. My mother nodded, wiping her eyes again. Your grandmother hid too much, she said softly. Too much. I started the car, but my hands were shaking. My heartbeat felt loud in my chest, like it was pounding against my ribs, trying to escape. We drove slowly toward the old canal road, the road where Ayesha had taken her last known steps, the place where her footprints disappeared, the place where someone screamed in the darkness. My mother kept her eyes on the road ahead, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. She whispered, "Beta, I'm scared of what we'll find." I whispered back, "I'm scared too." The road was quiet, almost too quiet. The trees on both sides cast long shadows across the mud. The air was still. Even the birds seemed silent. When we reached the canal bridge, I parked the car slowly. We stepped out, and the world around us felt colder. The canal water flowed quietly, the surface reflecting the sky like a sheet of dark glass. The mud along the edge looked old and cracked, untouched for years. My mother hugged her shawl around her shoulders. "This place hasn't changed at all," she whispered. Her voice carried a sadness that made my chest ache. We walked slowly along the edge, our steps soft, almost hesitant. I tried to imagine Ayesha here, barefoot, crying, alone, running from something or someone. A trembling awe escaped me. My mother pointed toward a cluster of thorn bushes at the edge of the path. "That must be where the cloth was found," she whispered. I nodded, stepping closer. The thorns still looked sharp, unforgiving. I crouched down, brushing the dirt around them gently with my fingers. The soil was dry, but beneath it, something felt strange, softer. I dug lightly with my fingers, slow, cautious movements. My heart was racing. My breath came out sharp, uneven. My mother crouched beside me, her voice shaking. "What is it? Do you see something?" I dug deeper. My fingers hit something hard. I froze. My mother gasped softly. "Beta, what is that?" I pulled gently, carefully, my hands trembling so much that dirt spilled through my fingers. After a moment, something emerged. A rusted metal ring, small, thin, old. I held it between my fingers, my heart thudding wildly. My mother whispered, her voice breaking, Is that an anklet piece?" I looked at it closer, and my breath caught. There were tiny beads attached to it, faded silver beads, dust-covered but familiar. My father's voice echoed in my mind. She had anklets that jingled when she walked. A weak, trembling "ha ha ha" escaped me, half laugh, half sob. "Mom," I whispered, my voice cracking. "I think this belonged to her." My mother covered her face, crying softly. I felt my own tears fall. We sat there for a moment, both crying quietly, the soft canal breeze brushing our faces. Finally, I whispered, "She made it this far. She reached this place. She left this behind." My mother whispered through tears, "She must have been terrified." I nodded, swallowing hard. "We need to keep looking." We stood up slowly and continued walking along the canal, our eyes scanning every inch of the ground. As we walked, I noticed something unusual near the old stone wall along the bridge. A small piece of something white, stuck between the stones. I stepped closer. My mother held her breath. "Do you see something?" she asked softly. I reached out and tugged gently. It came loose. It was a fragment of paper, old, yellowed, fragile. I unfolded it carefully, my hands shaking. There were faint letters on it, barely visible. I held it up to the sunlight, and my blood ran cold. It was handwritten, faded, but readable. Just 3 words. "Please help me." My breath stopped. My vision blurred with tears. My mother pressed her hand to her mouth, crying again. Oh my God, she wrote this here?" I nodded weakly, tears falling onto the paper. "She tried, Mom. She tried to get help." My voice broke completely. She tried, and no one came. My mother sobbed softly, her shoulders shaking. "Aw, Ayesha, poor girl, poor girl." I looked at the canal water, shimmering quietly under the sun. A strange feeling washed over me. A mix of grief, anger, fear, and something darker. I whispered, "This wasn't an accident." My mother looked at me, trembling. "What do you mean?" I held up the torn paper. She didn't run away. She didn't slip. She didn't disappear on her own. Someone was following her. Someone tore her dupatta. Someone hid the evidence. I looked at the thorn bush, and someone broke her anklet. My mother's face went pale. Her voice trembled, barely audible. "Beta, do you think someone hurt her?" I looked toward the canal. The wind whispered across the water. My heart felt like it was sinking into the mud beneath us. I nodded slowly. "Yes, Mom." My voice cracked. "I think someone took her life." My mother gasped, loud, sharp, terrified. She closed her eyes, whispering shaky prayers under her breath. I clenched the paper fragment in my hand. If this was her last message, then she didn't just vanish. She died calling for help. I whispered quietly, voice trembling, "We have to tell Dad." My mother shook her head immediately, fast, panicked. "No, not now. He won't survive this. Not yet. Please, not yet." I inhaled deeply. She was right. The truth would destroy him if we gave it to him raw, without preparing him. I nodded slowly. "Okay, we won't tell him yet." My mother wiped her tears again. "Then what do we do now?" she whispered. I looked at the paper in my hand, then the anklet ring, then the bushes, then the water, and I whispered, "We find out who the shadow belonged to." The sun was beginning to set when we finally reached home. The sky glowed with an orange-red shade that felt almost painful to look at, as if even the heavens knew what we had uncovered near the canal. My mother walked inside first, wiping her swollen eyes. I followed slowly, feeling like my own feet had turned heavier than stones. My father was in the living room, half asleep on the sofa, one arm resting on his forehead. He looked peaceful, too peaceful, and that made my heart ache even more. My mother whispered softly, "Don't say anything. Not yet." I nodded. We sat beside him quietly, and for a moment, all I could hear was the sound of his breathing. Calm, gentle, unaware of the storm that was about to break over his whole world. He stirred and sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Oh, you're back," he said with a tired little smile. His voice cracked slightly, still hoarse from crying the night before. "How are you both feeling?" he asked. I swallowed hard. It took everything in me not to cry right there. Everything. My mother forced a soft, trembling smile. "Ha ha ha, tired, but okay." He nodded. I'm glad," he whispered. "Aw." His eyes still looked haunted, but there was a softness, like letting the truth out had lifted some of the weight he carried all those years. We sat with him, talking lightly, pretending nothing had changed, pretending we didn't just find a torn note begging for help, pretending we didn't just find a broken piece of her anklet, pretending we didn't know she was followed. My father didn't suspect a thing, but inside me, a fire had begun to burn. That night, long after my parents went to sleep, I stayed awake, sitting on the floor beside my bed, the broken anklet ring in my hand. I held it tight, so tight it felt like it was cutting my skin. "Ayesha," I whispered into the silence, my voice trembling. "I swear, I will not let your story die." I closed my eyes, and in the quiet of the night, I could almost hear soft anklet bells jingling in the hallway. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe it was guilt. Or maybe, just maybe, her spirit never left. A shiver crawled up my spine. I whispered again, softer. You weren't alone that night. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke with a strange determination. My mother walked into my room, eyes swollen but steady. We can't stop now, she said simply. I nodded. We spent the next few hours making a list of anyone who could have been the shadow following her that night. Relatives, neighbors, men who worked nearby, even strangers who sometimes visited the area. But one name kept appearing. One person who had always been unpredictable, aggressive, short-tempered, cruel to Ayesha, and fiercely loyal to my grandmother. My mother didn't want to say the name out loud. Her voice trembled, but I said it first. Uncle Ralph. My mother closed her eyes, whispering a soft, pained sigh. He was my grandmother's brother, a drunkard, a man with a violent streak, a man who forced rules on everyone except himself. He used to visit often, especially on nights when there were fights. My father once told me, trembling, "Your grandmother relied on Ralph to keep the house in control." I understood it now. A dark feeling twisted inside my chest. My mother whispered, "He was here that night. I remember. He left late." My breath shook as I whispered, "Then he could have followed her." We needed answers. We needed to know whether he was involved. We drove to his old house, deep in a rural area, a place he lived alone after his family abandoned him. The sky turned gray as we reached. The house was quiet, too quiet. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder. Still nothing. Finally, the door creaked open slightly, and we stepped inside. The house smelled of dust, old clothes, and stale cigarettes. "Uncle Raouf?" I called out softly. Silence. We walked deeper inside, and then stopped suddenly. There he was, lying on the bed, still, silent, unmoving. My mother gasped softly, holding my arm tightly. We stepped closer. His chest wasn't rising. His eyes were closed. A bottle lay beside him. He looked gone. My mother whispered, He's dead." My breath trembled. Gone. The one man who may have known the truth, gone forever. But something on the bedside table caught my eye. A box. Old, wooden, covered in dust. My hands shook as I reached for it. My mother whispered, "Beta, be careful." I opened it slowly. Inside was a set of letters, old, yellowed, folded carefully. I opened the first one. It was written by Ayesha. My heart nearly stopped. My vision blurred instantly. My mother gasped. I read the first line. "I am scared. Someone is watching me. I don't feel safe in this house." My hands shook so violently the paper almost slipped. I read the next line. "Your uncle threatened me again today." A wave of cold washed over me. I read the next. "If anything happens to me, it won't be because I ran away." My mother let out a soft, broken sob. Oh my God. Oh my God. We read all the letters, each one more heartbreaking, each one filled with fear, with warning, with messages no one ever heard. She wrote about being followed, about someone knocking on her window at night, about feeling trapped, alone, unprotected. When I reached the last letter, my heart shattered completely. "If I don't survive this, please forgive me. I tried. I really tried." A soft cry escaped me. I covered my mouth, shaking. My mother collapsed onto the chair, crying uncontrollably. Oh God, she knew. She knew something would happen. I couldn't breathe. The truth was right there in my hands. Raouf had her letters, hidden for 30 years, and now he was dead. We couldn't confront him. We couldn't ask him why. We couldn't know exactly what he did. But the truth was clear. Ayesha didn't disappear. She was silenced. We left the house quietly, our hearts heavier than they had ever been. When we reached home, my father was sitting outside, waiting for us. He smiled lightly when he saw us, but when he saw our faces, his smile faded instantly. "What happened?" he asked softly. My mother broke down crying again. My father rushed to her, holding her, panicking. "What happened? Tell me." I stepped closer, tears burning my eyes, and whispered, "Dad, we found her letters." His body went still. He looked at me slowly, trembling. "Letters? Ayesha's letters?" I nodded. He cupped his mouth with both hands, shaking violently. What did they say?" he whispered through a cracking voice. I knelt beside him, tears falling freely. "They said she was scared, Dad. She felt unsafe. She wrote about someone threatening her." My father staggered back as if hit. He shook his head wildly. No, she never told me. She never told me." My mother whispered, "She tried, but we didn't know. We didn't see. We failed her." My father broke. He sobbed harder than I had ever seen. He clutched his chest, crying loudly, painfully, as if his heart was tearing itself apart. "Ayesha, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," he cried. My mother held him tightly. I held his hand. We cried together, all three of us. When the storm inside him finally softened, he whispered with a trembling breath, "What do we do now?" And I answered, "We honor her. We speak her name. We acknowledge her pain. We tell the world she didn't run away. We tell her story so she is never forgotten." My father nodded, crying softly again. "She deserved justice," he whispered. "She still does," I said gently. "We didn't find a body. We didn't find a grave. We didn't find every missing detail. But we found her voice, her truth, her fear, her last cry for help. We gave her back her story, and sometimes that is the closest thing to justice a broken family can reach." That midnight, for the first time in 30 years, we lit a candle for Ayesha. My father whispered her name with trembling lips. My mother cried softly. I held their hands and whispered, "You were never alone. Not then, not now, not ever again." And in the quiet of the night, I felt a small breeze pass through the room, soft, gentle, warm, almost like a thank you, almost like a goodbye.